On a Saturday night in 1999, 2.5-year-old Teekah Lewis was having fun with her family at a local bowling alley. She was toddling around, playing with the arcade games, and being doted on by her family. She was playing on a racing game in which she couldn't even reach the pedals, but she was having fun turning the steering wheel side to side, pretending she was driving. But some family members took their turns bowling and looked away for mere moments. When they looked back, Tikka was gone, and she hasn't been seen since. Welcome to Investigating the Northwest. This channel is dedicated to exploring the mysteries, locations, urban legends, and history of the Pacific Northwest. Tikka's disappearance has been a mystery for the state of Washington for over 23 years now. Can you help solve it? Teekah Latres Lewis was born on July 4th, 1996. She was a holiday baby, and there would always be a celebration and fireworks on her birthday. Her parents are her mother, Teresa English, of Chippewa descent, and her father, Robert Lewis. Tikka was multiracial, having Black, white, and Native American heritage. Tikka's mother said she was a happy child with a dazzling smile, and this is something you can see in many of the pictures of Tikka, just this lovely girl with a bright smile. Tikka loved cereal, French fries, and Winnie the Pooh. She had 4 siblings, 3 older and 1 younger, but her mother Teresa said that Tikka was her heart. Her father is Robert Lewis. Now, Robert was not at the bowling alley that night. In 1997, Robert had been charged with the first-degree robbery over the theft of a ring and was in prison from 1997 to 2001. He remembered getting the call around 4 a.m., hours after Tikka was reported missing, and the authorities told him what had happened. Robert has never been a person of interest. As the search went on for Tikka, he could do nothing but wait for updates until he was finally released 2 years after Tikka was taken. On Saturday, January 23, 1999, Tikka's family had a large gathering at the New Frontier Lanes bowling alley. At the time, it was located at 4702 South Center Street, Tacoma, Washington. This was a large family get-together, as newspaper articles reported there being 12 to 16 family members in the group. It's a Saturday night, and this is a really popular bowling alley, so it was packed. The bowling alley stated there were approximately 150 bowlers and just as many non-bowlers in the building that night, around 300 people. It was reported to be very loud and crowded. One of my own family members worked in a bowling alley, so I practically grew up in one. I can clearly imagine what the scene would look and feel like. Lots of people going to and from the lanes, to the concessions, arcades, and shoe rental desk. There are the sounds of the pins crashing, the video game machines, people talking and laughing, cheering over their strikes or booing over their gutter balls, and music playing in the background. I imagine it would be so easy to lose track of someone in this kind of crowded, noisy environment. That night, Tikka was wearing a dark green Tweety Bird sweatshirt, white sweatpants, red, black, and white Air Jordan sneakers. Tikka was also carrying a clear purse with a fish design on it, and in the little purse was some spare change from her uncle and Starburst candy. Days after Tikka went missing, the police would take Teresa to the mall to purchase clothing identical to the ones Tikka was wearing that evening and released pictures to the media. A story from this evening really breaks my heart, but it tells you what Tikka was like, even as a 2.5-year-old. Tikka used her coins and tried to win a stuffed animal from one of those claw grab games, but she couldn't grab anything. Her uncle took over and won her a teddy bear. Then she gives the teddy bear to her younger 10-month-old sister. This just shows you how kind the family is and how kind-natured Tikka was. She tried and tried to win a stuffed animal, and when she got it, she gave it to her baby sister. A little after 10 p.m., Tikka was seen playing at one of the race car video games. Now, my kids love to play driving at racing games, whether they have the money for it or not. They sit behind the wheel, moving it from side to side, pretending that they're racing and driving. From the bowling alley map, it appears this particular game was not in the arcade itself, but slightly outside of it against a wall, and it was about 6 feet away from an exit door. At one point, it becomes Teresa's turn to bowl. She had been watching Tikka at the video game. Her boyfriend takes over watching Tikka. When he takes his turn, Tikka's uncle takes over watching her. Then Tikka's uncle looked away for a moment to watch Teresa's boyfriend take his shot. When he looked back, she was gone. It only took mere moments for a vigilant family to look away, and she disappeared. I can't imagine the heartbreak Tikka's uncle must have felt. This was the uncle that gave her the spare change and won her the teddy bear. The one moment of looking away, and Tikka was lost in the crowd. It's about 10:30 p.m., and Tikka's uncle had alerted Teresa that Tikka had left the video game. The family searched the bowling alley briefly to see if she had wandered into the arcade game or gone to the bathroom, but only after a few minutes, Teresa contacted the off-duty Tacoma police officer that was functioning as the bowling alley security that evening. They informed the bowling alley, and about 10:35, the alley made an announcement over the loudspeaker asking everyone to stop and look for the missing child. The off-duty police officer also calls the disappearance in to the local police. By 10:45 p.m., authorities arrive on the scene, cordon off all the parking lot exits, search the area, and set up roadblocks. It only took 15 minutes from the time Tikka was discovered missing to the police arriving on scene. That evening, the authorities had 33 search and rescue volunteers and 8 dog handlers searching a 1.5-mile radius around the bowling alley. A helicopter was also deployed to use infrared technology to look for possible heat signatures of a child. They searched all throughout the night, hoping to find Tikka, possibly lost, but safe. The police performed a search of local registered sex offenders and started doing background checks on all of the bowling alley employees. They set up a tip line just for Tikka's case. 4 FBI agents were brought in on Sunday morning and would be joined by 4 more. Initially, Teresa suspected a woman she encountered that evening. The strange woman asked to hold one of Teresa's relatives' baby while they were bowling, but that woman was quickly ruled out as a suspect. That does seem strange, yes, but the woman had asked to hold one of the babies and hadn't seemed interested in Tikka. Teresa didn't believe that Tikka could open the exit door by the video game herself. It would be too heavy. She also said that, quote, Tikka was a mama's girl who cried when others tried to hold her. She wouldn't even let uncles or aunts pick her up, end quote. So it's not like she would have gone willingly with a stranger. Tikka's father was also quickly ruled out because he was in prison at the time and wouldn't be released until years later. The police also checked his prison phone records to ensure he didn't arrange anything from inside the prison. And according to a Nancy Grace interview, unfortunately, the bowling alley's surveillance system was not working that night. On Monday, the second day after Tikka's disappearance, 11 FBI officers, 33 police officers, Teresa and her family went door to door with flyers throughout the neighborhood. They went to every nearby business to see if anyone had witnessed anything Saturday evening outside the bowling alley. They had received 75 tips on the tip line at this point. The police even checked the phone records of nearby phone booths to see if anyone near a phone booth around the time of the disappearance had witnessed anything outside. This day, Monday the 25th, Teresa also spent 8 hours talking with the police about what happened. She was also given a polygraph test during this time, but they have not released the results. Teresa's family even contacted a psychic the day after Tikka disappeared because they were determined not to leave any stone unturned. Through the newspaper articles released at this time, police asked anyone who was there that night to provide any photos or videos that they may have taken to try to identify any possible suspects in the images and to try to piece together what may have happened that night. It has never been released whether anyone provided photos or videos, but as we'll discuss later, Teresa was shown an image of a person of interest, and since the bowling alley security cameras were not working that night, it had to come from somewhere. Tuesday, authorities dragged a nearby pond, but didn't find Tikka or her belongings. And a local radio station organized a group of 50 volunteers to search a 3-mile radius around the bowling alley. On Tuesday, police also retrieved a bundle of clothing from an area that search dogs had indicated the evening of Tikka's disappearance. So, Remember I said on the night Tikka went missing, there were 8 dog handlers scouring the area? Well, they apparently alerted on an area that was covered in heavy bushes. I'll show you a picture of one of the search dogs and the heavy brush and greenery it was searching through. That evening, they weren't able to go into the bushes to find what the dogs sensed. The police then went in and cleared all of the bushes and brush from the area, and that's when they found the clothing. It was a navy blue wool coat with the letters IS or JS on the label, later determined to be a coding system from Value Village. Also, white jeans, size 34 waist, 32 length. A blue and green plaid flannel shirt. Police felt that the clothing hadn't been there long because there was no mold or mildew on the clothes. Those who live in the Washington area know how rainy and moist the environment is, so anything left outside is going to quickly get moldy. And then final thought. The dogs found these clothing by scent, and I assume, but can't confirm, that they were looking for Tikka's scent. So does this mean the clothing had Tikka's scent on it? I haven't found any confirmation of that, but the clothes are considered evidence in this case. By Wednesday, 120 tips had been received. Teresa was given a second polygraph, and although we don't have the official results of either polygraph, she was ruled out as a suspect. One other family member was given a polygraph, but we don't know who that was. On Thursday and Friday, America's Most Wanted was at the bowling alley filming a reenactment of Tikka's disappearance to air that weekend. Then Saturday, the 30th, marked a full week that Tikka had been gone. A vigil was held at the bowling alley that evening, and the episode of America's Most Wanted aired that night as well. Now, remember earlier that I mentioned that Teresa had contacted a psychic just the day after Tikka vanished? There is a fair amount of psychic involvement in this case. Teresa's family is Native American, Chippewa to be specific, and there is a reliance on spirituality to support the family during this time. On Monday, February 1st, police search an area near the east gate of Fort Lewis, 2.5 miles from the Roy Y. This was approximately 13 miles from the bowling alley. This tip came in from the psychic who led police to the remains of Cynthia Allinger, who went missing in 1996. Because of her previous miraculous tip in Cynthia's case, the police gave this tip some credence. I looked, but I couldn't find the psychic's name when researching either case. By February 4th, not even 2 weeks after the disappearance, police had received 550 tips and interviewed over 300 people. Tikka's case inspired other local parents to protect area children. On February 6th, at a local mall, parents held a special fingerprinting event to photograph and fingerprint up to 10,000 local children. Also on February 6th, America's Most Wanted aired a second episode highlighting Tikka's case. Even more tips flowed in right after the episode finished. Tikka's missing poster was featured on the side of 30 public transportation buses in Tacoma. February 23rd, on the 1-month anniversary, Teresa's family held a public Indian prayer ceremony. This was in part to support the family and send prayers to help find Tikka, but to also increase visibility for Tikka and to keep her name in the forefront of people's minds. In early March 1999, Senate Bill 5108, the Teekah Lewis bill, was proposed to provide extra funding and support for missing children's cases. Now, in July 1999, New Frontier Bowling Alley is torn down. Could it be due to their reputation as a sex predator's hangout? Hold on tight. We'll delve more into that later. The bowling alley was torn down and construction started in the lot nearby to build other stores. The family and police were hoping that some sort of evidence would arise when they started to dig up the ground around the bowling alley. But nothing new was found. Over the years, a Jack in the Box and a Home Depot would be built over the site of the bowling alley, but no new evidence was ever recovered. In an article dated January 21st, 2000, right before the 1-year anniversary, the current leads in the case are described for the public. The first was a report of 2 men who had appeared to be watching Tikka near the video games on that evening at about 10:15 p.m., right before she disappeared. Remember this report because we will come back to this. A teenager reported seeing these 2 men and described them, quote, One man is believed to be in his 30s to 40s, about 5 feet 11 and 200 pounds. He had brown hair, a thick mustache, pockmarked face, and a big nose. The second man was also believed to be in his 30s or 40s, was about 5'9" and 200 pounds. He had long black hair and wore dirty jeans and a gray jacket with the sports logo. End quote. The second lead was a report of a car speeding out of the parking lot at about 10:15. It was described as an 80s or early 90s Pontiac Grand Am, was said to be maroon in color with 4 doors and a spoiler on the back. The witness did not get a license plate. There were thousands of matches for that description, so it was impossible to narrow down who owned that car. And I remember in that time period, the Pontiac Grand Am was super popular, and many people owned the Pontiac Grand Am. The woman remembered this incident specifically because, quote, the woman said the Pontiac Grand Am nearly hit her and fishtailed as it sped up Center Street towards State Route 16, end quote. This bowling alley was very close to Highway 16, and if somebody was trying to escape quickly with a victim, they might head straight for a highway to get as far away as quickly as possible. The passing years bring a few developments over time. Teresa holds an annual vigil for Tikka in the parking lot of the former bowling alley every year. Every January 23rd, the family and community gather to honor and remember Tikka and to make sure her case is never forgotten. In May 2001, the remains of a young girl were discovered in Kansas and initially thought could be Tikka. Teresa provided DNA for testing, but the DNA test determined the girl was not Tikka. The Kansas girl was known as Precious Doe and has now been identified as Erica Green. 5 years pass. In 2006, a private investigator hired by Tikka's family tells Teresa he found a girl he thought could be Tikka living with a woman in Dallas, Texas. He sent Teresa photos of the girl, and she did indeed resemble Tikka. The FBI interviewed the girl and performed DNA tests, and it was determined that this girl was not Tikka. The Dallas girl was also found to be 12 years old, while Tikka would be 10 at this time. In 2007, there was another potential lead. Quote, the arrest of Terapon Dang Adhon in the July 4th abduction and slaying of Zena Linnick, 12, could also signal a break in 2 other cases. Tacoma Police Chief Don Ramsdale said investigators are trying to determine whether Adhon could have some connection with other abductions, including those of 2 Tacoma area girls, end quote. He has never been officially ruled out as a suspect, but the girl he was convicted of killing was much older than Tikka. In 2008, the Washington State Police continue to raise awareness for missing children. Quote, in October 2008, Tikka became the latest missing child featured as part of the Homeward Bound program. The Washington State Patrol and Gordon Trucking of Pacific launched the program in 2006 to help find missing children, end quote. In 2008, Tikka was added to the list of missing girls the trucks would feature. Now we come to the next substantial lead. During the 2010 vigil held annually on the anniversary of Tikka's disappearance, Teresa was approached by a man in his 40s who told her he had had visions of where Tikka was located. This led police to the Point Defiance Park, where they started excavating looking for Tikka. Police have stated that this was a local man who had information significant enough for them to dig up at the park. In other articles about this case, police have said that they take psychic reports seriously, not necessarily because the psychic may be having accurate visions, but because the psychic could actually be the perpetrator. Some news articles state that Tacoma Police spokesman Mark Fulgham told them they dug at the native garden, and others state he said they dug at the rhododendron garden. These 2 places are on opposite ends of the park, but regardless, nothing related to Tikka was found. In a 2011 segment of Nancy Grace, Teresa claims that she knows who has Tikka, that the person lives in Florida. She said she told the authorities, and they have interviewed him and his family. He has taken 2 polygraphs, he failed one and passed the other. She said at the time that she just didn't have the funds to go to Florida and look for her personally. She suspects Tikka could be in Florida and thinks a former acquaintance could have snatched the little girl. Teresa said in an interview, quote, "Prior to Tikka's disappearance, this individual's mother asked me if she could have her. She did not have a girl. I told her, no way, she is my daughter. Then Tikka comes up missing. I have not heard from him since March 1999. Never once has he gotten in touch with me in the last 12 years to check on things." End quote. This was confirmed by Tacoma Police Detective Gretchen Aguirre, who said that in 2009 they had a person of interest in Florida and went to Florida to interview them, but didn't release any more information about what they discovered. The year 2012 brought two more possible leads. In June 2012, Tikka's 14-year-old sister was at a gas station when a man started questioning her. He asked about her age, and when the sister asked why he wanted to know, he said, quote, "Because you're cute, and I was going to have you come with me," end quote. She ran home, and the man followed her in his car. He then returned later and slowly drove by the house. The police went to the gas station to see about collecting surveillance. It doesn't appear they ever identified this man, but they did say, quote, "The suspect is a white male with dark hair driving a maroon 1990s model sedan," end quote. Sound familiar? Maybe like a 1990s maroon four-door Pontiac Grand Am racing out of the bowling alley parking lot? The very next month, in July 2012, police searched the home of a 56-year-old man who had pleaded guilty to attempting to lure a 3-year-old out of a different Tacoma bowling alley in 2010. Not only did they search his home, but they dug up his backyard looking for any link to Tikka. However, search and excavation did not turn up anything of value, and the man claims to know nothing about Tikka. In 2019, Washington State Police launched a new effort with Camway Trucking to display pictures of missing children on trucks up and down the West Coast. Now we come to the most current and significant lead, the one that could break this case wide open and find Tikka or her kidnapper. 20 years after Tikka's abduction, a cold case detective, Stephen Ropel, came across two tips that had surfaced within the week after Tikka went missing. First, he revisited the teenager's sighting of two men watching Tikka by the video games and discovered that the tip had much more specific information about that night. The detective contacted the teacher, now a grown man who prefers to be called John, to confirm the account. The witness said, quote, "I had to use the restroom, so I went towards where the restrooms were. This rude guy bumped into me with this little girl, and he was white, the little girl was mixed. I just thought it was a father rushing his daughter to the restroom," end quote. John remembers this because he thought the guy was really rude as he never apologized for bumping into him. Remember, this was the teenager that described two men, one of them being a white male in his 30s with curly brown hair, a thick mustache, a big nose, and a pockmarked face. Detective Ropel also noticed another tip, and one eerie detail stuck out. On Thursday and Friday after Tikka's disappearance, America's Most Wanted was at the bowling alley to film a reenactment for an episode to air about Tikka that weekend. A woman on site said she noticed a man hanging around the set acting so strange that she felt the need to call the police and report it. The man appeared to have brown hair and a pockmarked face. The detail about the pockmarked man had not yet been released to the public, so this pockmarked man was reported by two unrelated individuals. January 23rd, 2020, on the 21st anniversary, the media and news outlets blasted this information far and wide. They are looking for a white man, about 5 feet 11 inches tall, with husky build, curly brown hair, a thick mustache, and a heavily pockmarked face. Also at this time, Tikka's mother describes how she found out about the pockmarked man. Quote, "I had to prepare myself for the worst," she said. Teresa said police approached her in November and showed her a picture of a man who they believe was at the bowling alley the day of Tikka's disappearance. "When they showed me the picture, all I could do was cry," said Teresa. "I remember the guy from the bowling alley, and if that's the case, there's no way Tikka is here right now." Teresa said the man was not the kind of man you want around your children. She described him as a white male with brown hair and a pockmarked face. She said he follows a Facebook page that she runs that is dedicated to finding Tikka, end quote. And in April 2021, the very last lead I was able to find seemed to be only available through Facebook. Someone had posted a picture of a message written on a bathroom wall in the women's bathroom of a half-price book in Austin, Texas. The message read, quote, "Please help. I was kidnapped. Teekah Lewis," end quote. Later on the Help Find Missing Teekah Lewis Facebook page, the group is told, quote, "Update on the latest lead from Texas. The detective went through all of the footage and found nothing out of the ordinary or anyone resembling Tikka. They still will keep a lookout and be accepting any tips from there. Please keep praying for Tikka," end quote. There was no official confirmation about this tip by police, but there was a picture of the message. Okay, I know this has been a long ride, following 23 years of investigation, but we're not quite done yet. It's important to understand Tikka's case within the full context of child predator cases in Tacoma in the months before and after Tikka's abduction. Per the charlieproject.org website for Tikka, in November 1999, 2 months before Tikka went missing, a 4-year-old boy was assaulted in the New Frontiers bowling alley bathroom. The suspect was a white man with brown curly hair and a beard. Could the beard have covered up pockmarks? Possibly. Then in December 1998, the month before Tikka's disappearance, a white man with brown hair tried to lure a 6-year-old boy out of the New Frontiers bowling alley by claiming he was the boy's father. Then, on the afternoon of January 23, 1999, hours before Tikka was taken, a white man with curly brown hair had tried to lure away 2 boys at a park about 1 mile away from the New Frontiers bowling alley. The children's father saw this happening and chased the guy away. The suspect drove away in a blue 1995 Pontiac Grand Am. Now, there are suggestions that the maroon car seen in the New Frontiers bowling alley at nighttime could have actually been blue instead of maroon. It is nighttime and you have the effects of streetlights and possibly the neon from the bowling alley affecting the color of the car. So, was this the same car? So remember, New Frontiers bowling alley was torn down only 6 months after Tikka went missing. Could it be that New Frontiers bowling alley had developed a reputation as a predator's hunting ground and lost enough business to close down? That's just personal speculation, but it's a possibility. Now, it doesn't stop here. Between March 1st and 12th of 1999, 4 attempts were made to snatch children in the Tacoma area. 3 girls and 1 boy. None of the attacks were successful, thank goodness. In these cases, the children were all much older than Tikka, between 7 and 15 years old. This is all to put into context that Tacoma was rife with child predator attacks, and it was just not a safe time for children in the Tacoma area. Now we talk about some of the theories. What could have happened to Tikka? The first theory is that Tikka wandered off by herself. Tikka was a small 2-year-old girl. It is unlikely she would be able to get the side door open, as Teresa felt the door was too heavy for Tikka to push open. Also, if it's one of those doors that you have to push the bar in the middle to unlatch and open, Tikka was likely not tall enough. The other option is that she left through the front door, maybe as somebody else was entering or exiting. But I imagine that someone would notice a 2-year-old girl toddling out by themselves and bring her back in, or at least say something later. Also, the police were there and cordoning off the area within 15 minutes of Teresa reporting her missing. The police didn't feel like a 2-year-old could have gotten that far, and they definitely would have found her during their search efforts that evening. So the theory of Tikka wandering off by herself is not very likely. Now, Nancy Grace mentioned this second theory, that this was a family dispute and a family-related abduction. The Lewis family seems to have been very close, and there weren't any reports of family arguments or bad relationships. I feel that throughout this investigation, Tika was very upfront when she suspected someone. And if she thought that someone in her family had taken Tika, I'm positive she would have told the police. This theory is the thinnest, in my opinion. The third theory is that someone the family knew took Tika to raise themselves. This has been a theory Teresa has been holding on to for at least a decade. She felt someone she used to know had abducted and was raising her child. I imagine as a parent of a missing child, that is the scenario you hope for most, that someone wanted to take care of your child. However, the FBI looked into that theory and it hasn't led to Tika. The final theory is that this was a stranger abduction. Maybe someone snatched her and exited that side door. If it's the two-man scenario, one man could have gone out to the parking lot to get the car, maybe that Pontiac Grand Am, and pull up by the side exit door, while the other man grabbed her and exited through the side door. Then they raced out of the parking lot around 10:15 and were spotted by the witness. However, the pockmarked man was seen taking Tikka and rushing away with her as the teenager, John, was going to the restrooms. We don't have a location of where this interaction took place, but the racing game was only steps away from a side door, so I don't see this interaction happening near the side door. There didn't appear to be any restrooms near that location. Was the pockmarked face man trying to leave with her through the front entrance? If that's the case, how would he reasonably get a young girl who didn't like strangers, who even screamed when relatives picked her up, and get to the front door unnoticed? Maybe the noise of the bowling alley drowned out her cries? Although the bowling alley and Teresa said that an announcement was made over the loudspeaker, many witnesses said they did not hear it. The teenage witness, John, never heard an announcement. There were approximately 300 people crowding this bowling alley. Could someone get from the video game on the far left of the alley to the front exit, possibly covering her mouth, without being noticed by anyone? Those are the current theories. Which one do you think is most possible? So now we're going to cover my thoughts, my questions about the case, things that stand out and seem a little unresolved to me. The first question I have is, why haven't we seen the picture? Unless this is a vast misunderstanding, Teresa has stated to the news media that the police showed her a picture of the pockmarked man. I can only assume this picture came from the photos and videos the police asked the public for right after the kidnapping. Since the surveillance system wasn't working, the police asked through the local newspapers for all the cameras, photos, and video taken that night so they could try to piece together what happened from the bowler's personal pictures. If the police have been asking the public to look for the pockmarked man and provide clues to his identity, why haven't they released this picture or even a sketch? That would be so valuable in finding this man. I don't even know what to do with the statement Teresa made that she feels this man had been following Tikka's previous Facebook page. If he's following the page, then we know who the pockmarked man is, yes? The only thing I can think of is that the conversation the news outlet reported was incomplete or taken out of context, but there definitely seems to be some information missing about this exchange. But I still wonder, why don't we have a sketch? My next thought or suggestion is that the 1999 list of registered sex offenders should be examined again now that the connection of the multiple sightings of the pockmarked man has been made. Clearly, he was local. He was there the night Tikka went missing, and he was at the bowling alley nearly a week later. This man lived nearby. In the current sex offender registry, it lists the person's name, address, and all the descriptive details. There's also a section describing tattoos and scars. Was there someone listed with facial scarring in the state of Washington in 1999? Of course, for one, I feel the registry has to be something police have relied on heavily to look for suspects, and two, Maybe this man hadn't been convicted of anything at that time, but it would be hard for me to believe, with all the reports of a brown-haired man trying to lure children at this time, that in the past 20 plus years he hasn't been caught for something by now. Is there a pockmarked man with brown, well, maybe gray hair by now, 5'11", approximately in their mid-50s to 60, in the registry today, anywhere in the US? In the notes for the Unresolved podcast about Tikka, they mention that the list of sex offenders listed in the area during 1999 was exhaustive and difficult to narrow down. So I know that it's possible to access historical registries, but that also nothing distinctive must have stood out. Maybe the pockmarked man is in prison somewhere in the US. Has a search been completed for more recent sex offenders who may be in the prison system right now? Mugshots would have to show those distinctive pockmarks. So now I want to show you something from an unrelated case. Just something to think about. In Tacoma in 1994, a couple was found dead, one outside of a car and the other a few miles later, Michael Johnston and Rochelle Robinson. This is an unsolved murder. Supposedly, according to friends, Rochelle had been stalked by someone in the months prior to her murder. Here is a picture of that person of interest. This is a person with darker, maybe brown, curly-looking hair with facial scarring that appears to be in his 20s. So 5 years later, in 1999, he might be in his early 30s. Now I know Rochelle's case did not involve children. However, this just seems really coincidental that this sketch appears to resemble the pockmarked man we've been looking for in Tikka's case. But ultimately, my question is, why don't we have a similar sketch of Tikka's pockmarked man? If the Tacoma PD was releasing sketches like this in 1994, why were there no sketches of the two suspicious men only 5 years later in Tikka's case? So those are just my additional thoughts and unanswered questions I have about Tikka's case. What can you do now? Where do we stand today? Teresa has always held out hope that Tikka is alive and has been raised by someone else. She has submitted DNA to the genealogy websites just in case Tikka ever submits her DNA to learn about her ancestry. Teresa hopes that maybe Tikka will be discovered trying to get her driver's license, a social security number, or any other official identification. What can you do? Do you think you've seen Tikka? If alive, she would be about 25. She would be multiracial, Black, white, and Native American, and have some eczema discoloring on her face. This is an age progression of what Tikka might look like at 17, which would probably be very close to what she would look like at 25. But the key now is to find this pockmarked man so that he can be interviewed by authorities. Even if the police determine he's not a suspect, he might have vital information about what happened that night. He would be one more witness to the scene at the bowling alley. Here is the description of what he looked like on the night Tikka was abducted. But today, he would be a white man, about 5'11", could have brown or graying curly hair, and would now be about 50 to 60 years old. Do you know of someone who may be a risk to children and fits the description anywhere in the US? He may have moved, but would likely still continue his suspicious behavior. Maybe some person you've seen hanging out near a park or a school that fits this description. Maybe someone tried to take responsibility for this, to brag about taking Tikka, or just has a really deep interest in Tikka's case and fits this description. If he's alive today, I do feel like he can be identified. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Tikka's case. It may be a 23-year-old case, but it can still be solved. We can still find Tikka and her abductor. If you're interested in learning about the mysteries of the Pacific Northwest, of exploring fascinating locations and discovering local legends, please do subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to receive an email when a new video is released. Thank you.